April 12th meeting of the Town of Hadley Select Board. And the first customary item this evening is the reorganization of the Select Board after our elections that were held yesterday. So with that, entertain motions for chair and clerk.
I'll make a motion to nominate you as chair again, if you would accept.
I will second that for nomination. Are you interested?
Yeah, and for continuity, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, any discussion?
How about a change? How about Jerry?
How about next year? Let Molly finish some of the stuff that she started. I'll be
Okay.
interested next year if that's okay with you guys. I will be interested next year.
Okay,
You know I'm a change guy.
I do.
I just brought it up, that's all.
that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And then for clerk, Joyce, you're the current clerk. So-
Nominate Joyce to see if she would like to continue in the, as a
Second
clerk.
nomination.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion on that?
Second.
All right, so motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Well, that's good, because now we don't have to unhook these things and
Move.
move. That was fraught with danger. So, the other thing is we typically discuss not committee assignments, liaison assignments. So I guess I would just ask if folks want to think about that. And David, could we make sure we put that on our next agenda?
Sure.
So if there's an appetite to retain the assignments, but we need to also just kind of check in and see how that's working, like who's able to, if you're not able to engage with certain departments or whatever, we should talk about that just to make sure that all of the departments have, it's clear who their point of contact is and everything. But, so we'll talk about that next time?
Sounds fine.
So, okay. All right, then we do, let's see, first we'll do the consent agenda and then public comment. The consent agenda this evening, we have two warrants, payables 1742 and 1742S. The ZBA has also requested the appointment of an alternate member, and that is Jason Galvin. For the master plan, if you remember when the planning board members were in here, they did mention that they were granting or wanting to grant a contract extension for the master plan to June 30th of 2017. And then we also have a proclamation for the Daily Hampshire Gazette's selection of Young Person of the Year. It's the first time that they have done this award, and it is our own Allison Jenks who rose to the top to secure that nomination.
Congratulations.
Motion to accept.
Second?
Okay,
For
motion.
discussion, anybody know Mr. Galvin? I mean, I just, does anybody know him at all?
Yeah, I know his, let's see, it's Tony Galvin's son.
Oh, great.
So his
Okay.
father's a Mason,
I
and
do.
Jason is in his own right as well.
And he lives in town.
Lives in town, yeah.
And
Yep.
you received a letter of recommendation from the ZBA asking that you would support that.
Mhm.
Be great.
Okay, motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great.
Do we have the proclamation?
Yes, it's right here. Would you like to read it aloud?
Well, is it long?
It's exactly the right length to honor our Allison Jenks.
Okay. All right, so the proclamation for Ally reads, whereas Allison Jenks is a student at Hopkins Academy in Hadley, whereas Allison Jenks is president of Pro Merito Honor Society, a member of Student Council, and whereas Allison Jenks is the captain of the soccer and basketball teams, a member of the band, and a peer mentor, and whereas Allison Jenks has been awarded the first Young Community Leader Award from the Daily Hampshire Gazette, now therefore we, the Select Board of the Town of Hadley, Massachusetts, on behalf of the inhabitants, do congratulate Allison Jenks on the occasion of the first Young Community Leader Award. We have no doubt that your achievements serve as an example to others, and we take great satisfaction that you are having such a successful and distinguished career. Congratulations, given this 12th day of April in the year 2017. Okay.
Outstanding.
Well, there are multiple signatures there, so we'll make sure we have multiple copies to sign.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay, so public comment, is there anyone here for public comment this evening? Yes, ma'am, Jane.
I'm here to report on the progress of the senior center building committee. We
Mhm.
met today with the architects and are very happy both with the meeting and with the architects.
Mhm.
2 weeks ago, they met with us and listened to what we wanted and our needs, and they reviewed all of the space needs and the program needs, and they went away.
Mhm.
We came back today and they showed us 4 different proposals. 4 different proposals for building layout and 4 different proposals for where the building might sit on the site
Okay.
and compare that to Target. The exciting thing was the committee liked everything. And it wasn't difficult to choose because there was one that stood out,
Mhm.
but it was really exciting to see that they had listened to us and that they were able to translate what we had said onto paper. And
Mhm.
it's still going to be within budget.
Music
So
to our
it's
ears.
all good news.
Yep.
The other good news is, we're meeting again with them on the 2nd, and assuming all goes well, we should have something to put on the wall for town meeting.
Good, good.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's going along well.
Very good.
Okay. Any questions about the senior center?
Nope.
No?
Anxious to see it.
Yeah,
Okay, good. All right, thanks, Jane.
thank you.
Okay, anyone else here for public comment?
Joyce, you want to give the update for the other?
Well, the fire, sub-fire station is meeting Thursday night with the architects, so we'll be seeing what their plans are. At the last meeting, we gave them what our priorities were and what we thought we should have in the department. They're gonna be coming back with what they could do within our limits of funding, so we'll know more on Thursday, excuse me. 6:30 for those that didn't get the memo.
Okay.
And I was with the Municipal Buildings Committee last night, and what I suggested to them and what they wholeheartedly agreed with was that we set up a joint meeting of the 2 boards. We have them in on one of our selectmen's meetings to begin to make sure that everybody's on the same page with a go forward. We've accomplished a lot of goals. There's a lot of things that have been done in the right direction. I think Marlo's going to be taking over some of the maintenance aspects of it now, and I think that we need to understand amongst each other and amongst the groups what everybody's perception is to how to go forward. And they thought it was a great idea. I know that they have a meeting next Tuesday. Marlo's going to be at the meeting expressing some of the needs of the DPW building down there, and we'll go forward from there. But I also asked if they could please hold off until after town meeting so that we could, have a chance to catch our breath and focus on it and give it the attention it needs.
Okay, good.
So if we could, sometime after town meeting, put that together, please.
Mhm. Donald, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I do. I gave this to David last week. I don't know if it made it into everybody's mailbox, but there's another Spring Fest gonna happen at the Young Men's Club. And I wanna bring all the parties involved and explain what's gonna happen to the board, make sure they have the proper licenses, the Board of Health, building inspector, electrical inspector, police and fire. Because no one's mentioned it. I only found out about this last week because they ordered 8 more buses again. So it's the same scenario. As of last week, there was 1,700 people going. And it's got 2 more weeks to sell tickets. So there's probably gonna be 2,500 people there again. And I just don't wanna assume any liability on this to town. And I would like, I think you spoke to Mr. Morales a little bit.
I'm meeting with him at 10:30 in the morning tomorrow, but I did speak to the chief of police, and he feels that this event is well in hand.
So we don't need to worry about it, you're saying?
That's what I'm hearing back from the chief.
Yeah. Well, are they following whatever process they have in the past?
Yes,
Okay.
they're hiring police officers and making sure they have all the permits in place.
And they have all the proper licensing and everything. My only one concern was, they set up a bar out in the ball field. Do they have a license to do that? They
Yes.
only have a license to serve in the pavilion and the clubhouse. And I
Uh,
would think they would have to come in for a 1-day beer and wine license to serve it out there.
Same property.
So I believe, and I'll double check this fact, but I believe that their liquor license allows them to use the entire property.
That would be fine then,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the whole property along with the pavilion.
So
I don't
could
have
you
any
just give us
intention of stopping it
assurances?
or anything like that. I just wanna make sure we don't assume any of the liability of this. That's all I'm
It's their
concerned about.
private property, Donald, so it's up to them to, they're responsible.
Yeah, but they have
So-
to come to get the entertainment license from us and all that, the
They ha-
different boards. Last time, none of that was done.
They don't-
And I wanna
they
make
don't
sure
need
it's
an
all
enter-
done this time. The building
They
inspector
don't
told
need an
me,
entertainment license from
they got a
us.
big full stage out there.
That's, but
And
they
they've got 5 bands or 6 bands.
don't need an entertainment license.
You have to
They have, it goes with the club, that they've never come to us for entertainment with all of the music and everything that they've ever had out there. I think it's
So-
just part of their license.
So I think the takeaway right now is that I'm aware of this, I'm
Yeah.
working with the public safety people, I'm working with the University of Massachusetts. We'll make sure that everything is in place for them to have a successful event.
I'm satisfied with that, David. That's
Okay.
fine.
All right, thank you.
Are we gonna do death
Okay.
after?
Yes, I'm gonna save that for last.
Okay.
All right, so, then if we can just move to, old business, and we'll go through this and then we can come back to the administrator's report, time permitting. So residential electricity aggregation plan, public announcement. David, is this simple as just reading this?
If you could just read that first paragraph, and that way it'll be entered into the record. And one of the concerns of the Good Energy is that we haven't done enough to get the word out to the public. Thank you. And if you remember, that was the problem with the HCOG aggregation plan, is that they just didn't inform people. So people are very sensitive. They want to make sure that the public is adequately informed and that we give an opportunity for a public hearing, which I've scheduled right now for May 3rd.
Okay, all right, so, anybody listening, pay close attention. So the
You
goal.
might wanna wait until we have the camera back there.
The
Well, I think
camera's on.
he's filming, he's just,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
just not live. The goal of the Community Electricity Municipal Aggregation Program, known as the program, is to bring the benefits of competitive choice of electric supplier, longer-term price stability than provided by the local utility, lower cost power, and more renewable energy options to the residents and businesses of the town of Hadley. Under the program, the municipality will have the opportunity to provide a portion of renewable or green power through renewable energy certificates, also known as RECs. The program will employ a procurement process designed to maximize savings and will provide a full set of consumer protections, including the right for any customer to opt out of the program at any time at no charge. Okay, so we're asking that time be available to receive comments for a period of not less than 2 weeks, so between now and May
3rd
3rd.
would be adequate time.
Okay, and so anybody that has any comments should direct it to the attention of the select board or to you?
Yes.
Attention of the select board,
Yeah.
okay, here at 100 Middle Street.
Is this gonna make it into the paper as well?
Yes, we're going to put this on the website, and we're going to make sure that people,
Press release?
that the press has a copy of it as well.
Do we need to advertise it?
You don't have to, but given the prior experience of major concern in the Department of Public Utilities that the New Hampshire Council of Governments had not adequately informed the public of the benefits of this program, that was one of the reasons, one of the major reasons for them denying the permit in the first time that we went through this. So a little bit of over advertising is not a bad thing in this environment.
Potential savings on this is up to 9% of their bill?
Well, it's one of the things that they talked about when they pitched this to you is that it would save potentially $100 a year for every average household. So $100 is $100 savings. This obviously is going to be bid out, so we don't know if that's the actual price.
Did you turn that, you turn the heat down?
Eversource
I
is
think
talking
you
about
need
going
an
up
up-
significantly
just
as
to
well
hear.
too.
Yeah,
Let me not-
yeah.
let
It's an
me not do
opportunity for
this.
some
Oh,
savings.
let me do it.
No, yours better than
Just a little bit.
this.
Thank you. It's getting cold out, baby.
Just so you know, it makes me happy knowing that Joyce is tethered.
Thanks. It's like a dog.
No
Might
sudden
bite ya.
movements, yeah. Okay, so next on the agenda, we have the beginning of a discussion about water and sewer rates. So David, you've presented some information tonight. Marlo's here as well. Believe it's the intent that we'll kick off a discussion, but that we will continue this discussion to a later point in time as well, to an actual formal hearing.
Right, we are asking that you take this under advisement, have an opportunity to review it, and if you have any feedback, happy to work with you on this. The short of it is that we have not raised water rates since 2007, and if you remember back then, we had raised rates with the idea that we'd keep the rates stable for a 3-year period in order to cover the costs of the new water treatment plant. And in 2010, when we revisited this, there was no real appetite to look at water rates. Sewer rates were last adjusted in 2008 under a separate commission, but then they haven't been adjusted since then. And as we all know, all costs for all operations have risen over the years. Our revenues have been relatively flat with some seasonal variation, wet summers, dry summers. But we're now in a situation where the Department of Environmental Protection has taken notice that we haven't adjusted our rates in a very long time. We're looking at the numbers. We're not liking what we see in terms of long-term solvency.
Why do they care?
Why do they
Yeah,
care?
What's their interest in that? By
Well, water and sewer are highly regulated industries, and so they don't regulate the rates, but they are concerned about the ability of an organization to run its operations. So if they think that there may be some problems with meeting your expenses over the long term, they definitely want to see you taking some sort of positive action.
they ought to get their nose in it, don't they?
How do we read this chart?
These are the existing rates or the future rates?
So the large sheet is for water, and you'll see on the the right-hand side that there's a series of boxes. What we're doing is we're looking at the meter charges, and the first thing that we've done is we've adjusted all the numbers to reflect the fact that you're going to quarterly billing as opposed to semi-annual billing. So those numbers have been adjusted to take into account the differential volumes that you would be measuring in each meter reading episode. So we're thinking that we need to change the meter charge. We've suggested a change that would bring in some more revenue, I think, to the tune of about $40,000. Then we've gone down and we've looked at the rates, and we've made some adjustments to the rates, again, based upon quarterly billing system, but also looking at an increase in order to bring in about $105,000 for the water system, which would be combined about $150,000 of new revenue coming into the water system, which you will need. The second page shows the adjustments for sewer. Your sewer's rate system is not as complex as the water, so it's pretty straightforward. You have two opportunities to bring in new revenues. The first one is for the rate change, and we're looking at the increases there that would bring in, I have the numbers right here. I'm not going to guess them off the top of my head. Be bringing in something on the order of $54,000 of new revenue from rate increases, but also looking at the septage fees, and we've talked about a 2-cent increase in the septic rate. Right now we receive septic at 11 cents per gallon. We're suggesting we go up to 13 cents per gallon, and that would bring in an additional $23,000, which would bring in about combined total of $76,000. Now we're also looking at a decrease in operational costs in the sewers, so you can double that number because we're going to see about $70,000. Is that the correct number? Of $79,000 worth of savings in the operational
How is that
side.
going to happen?
We had to put extra money in there because of the sludge removal, and we went through that whole process. We lost taking it to Montague, which is somewhere around 4 cents a gallon or something like that. And it jumped to like 11 cents a gallon, and we didn't have a contract with Lowell. So we got the money into the budget fall town meeting, I think. But since then, we were under contract with Lowell. They dropped it off to about 8 cents a gallon, 7 cents, 7, 8 cents. And some of our loads are starting to go back to Montague. They're back and open for business, but they're being heavily regulated by DEP. We don't know if it's a permanent thing. So that's where the difference is. The money was put in for that additional cost of hauling the sludge, but now when I forecasted my new budget, presented it, I took that back out because I know we're under contract with Lowell for the amount that I kept in there.
The charge for the septic, what is the market bear? What does the rest of other locations charge?
I made a few phone calls today. It varies. Some of them are right around the 13 cents, some are under. It varies. There's really no solid, no average number.
And we charge what?
11 cents a gallon.
And so one of the features about Hadley is the one we do not have a septic pumping season. A lot of boards of health don't allow septic system pumping during the winter time, so we have a year-round opportunity here. And then I think we're still competitive and we can still accept septage. We have the capacity in the plant to accept septage, which can be a generator of revenue.
Are either of these two departments projecting a loss for this year? Or are we just raising the rates to put more money in to do additional maintenance? I want clarification on that.
Right now, the water budget is going to be close in the operating budget, if that's what you're asking for this year. Sewer budget, we're going to be pretty good. We're going to be okay. But I think there's a lot of things. If I can give a little information coming to raise rates, I think it is my due diligence to look through all our other fees that we charge and look at everything before we come to a number for raising the water and sewer rates. So we've been working on a lot of things down there. One of the things that popped up was the septage increase of 2 cents. A lot of the miscellaneous fees is such as the miscellaneous revenues we take in sewer is actually charged to the water enterprise because of the waste and then cleaning the filters and what they do over at the water filtration plant that dumps to them. So we were looking at the miscellaneous fees, and it doesn't make sense to raise them because we're just charging one enterprise fund to another. So we're looking at entrance fees. We looked at all these things, but the bottom line is over the years, as the budgets have increased, materials have increased, labor's increased, the reserves have gone down. Operating budget up, reserves down. So that's why we're before you looking at the water sewer.
What are we sitting at presently in the sewer impact fees? That's well over $1 million, isn't it?
The figures I have with the commitment to the clarifier project, I saw $15,000 with the commitment of the clarifier project.
There's $16,000 in that account right now.
So we're in
earmarked.
To be spent.
Right.
Yes.
So there's more money coming online with the new development,
We got three right now developments that are on the horizon.
That money's being projected for the extension of Route 9 in the future too?
Well, yes.
That's what you're paying the money for, basically?
It's improvements of capacity of the plant, so whatever we can
Right.
do to improve the capacity of the plant, that's what the eligible use of that money is for.
And how much you're saying there's 16,000 left. How much are we planning on expending?
Well, we have close to 300,000 in there, but we're committing to the clarifier project.
Which we're going to talk about in a few.
290,000 is on the agenda tonight, so give or take 1,000, we're between 15 and 16,000 left in impact fees after we commit to the clarifier project.
I'd like to
yes,
see
so-
this break down a little bit more, because it looks to me like you're going from $100 a year for the meter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
61 a
it
quarter.
was 100, and you're going quarterly, you're going to $240,
You're not,
Significant.
4 times the amount.
Well, I mean, I think, can we, I mean, this is some good raw information, but it's really out of context.
Yeah.
So can we have, for the actual meeting, when we're gonna be talking about this, can we have an analysis that shows, you know, the current access charges and have a total on it so we can see what we're actually, I mean, like,
Average
there's no
bill.
total there. And then to John's point, it looks like we're more than doubling these fees, so, I mean, I'd like
Four
to know.
times, so $40,000 a quarter is $160,000 a year,
Yeah,
according to these figures.
Right,
The
so
way
we-
this is written.
I mean, I'd also like to know how this compares to other municipalities in the area.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the,
Yeah.
yeah, the meter charges.
All
And then
of
in
it.
terms of the revenues too, for, you know, whatever we're charging now. I mean, I'd like to see an analysis that says,
There
if
was
we
a-
were to go up by X amount, this is the additional revenue, and put it in the context of our budget, so like,
Well, I'd like to see it too, per household, so that
Yeah.
right.
the people, the taxpayers can know exactly how much they
The
might be
state was
spending.
involved with setting up a generic rate setup,
Yep,
and then I believe the engineering firm came up with this in 2007. Yeah, you probably have that stuff, don't you?
right.
When we raised the rates in 2007 or 8
Yeah,
or
they
whatever
came
it
in
was.
and did a presentation.
Yes, yes.
And then to Donald's point, we should also be looking at any of the reserve accounts associated with this, because we
Yeah.
want to see the impact on that, because it's twofold. One is covering your operating, and the other one is making sure you're not,
Yeah,
you know, that you're keeping an adequate
But we also
reserve.
have to remember, and I know we've talked about it too in the past, but I think we have to increase it to a certain amount because we have water lines and things and sewer lines that are old.
Mhm.
And those are gonna need to start to be replaced, so,
Mhm.
I mean, we do have to do something this year, but I don't think you can jump into it and make it astronomical for the taxpayer all in one.
Yeah.
Since we've got other projects on the table right now that they generously, you know, approved.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think we have to work it into people's budgets and not kill their pocketbooks.
Right. So was that the plan, was that to come with an actual analysis in front of
Yes,
us?
yeah,
Because, I mean, it's
so-
hard to react to this.
We're not asking
Yeah.
you to react to these
Yeah.
numbers because you're seeing them
no,
for the
and,
first
and
time.
We don't like 'em.
these projects we put in order and brought them as needed to the town meeting, and that's where we went one-time charge to town meeting for these bigger projects, like the Route 9 project
Right.
we went through,
Yep.
you know?
Because, I mean, it really begs this whole,
Yeah.
I mean,
you-
we keep talking about infrastructure and figuring out
But, you
what
know,
the
if you-
capital
if you-
requirement
if
is,
you're-
but then what's the funding for
Yeah.
it?
I mean, you're not going up 4 times the fees and put all brand new water lines in the whole town, and
No.
then what are you gonna do with the rest of that money? That's not gonna happen, I can tell you that right now.
I agree with you, Madam Chair, to have a comparable analysis, excuse me, of the surrounding communities also, their water rates and sewer rates. So we can look at that, make an analogy, and see what our future growth in new replacement lines, and then we could make a sound decision.
Okay.
As far as the meter charges, I don't necessarily, we don't necessarily have to increase them, I guess. That wasn't part of my, data that I was gathering. It's kind of a group effort to put this all together. And that's exactly what I looked at when I was going through everything. As the reserves go down, the reserves are there for our projects going forward. And we got 223,000 left in sewer reserves right now. In the last 3 years consistently, we've been taking out of reserves to balance the operating budget. So we got to reverse that cycle. We have 424,000 left in reserves in water. It was 5 years ago, we had about $1 million in there. So water isn't quite as bad off as sewer, but it's approaching that. So when we put these figures together, that was to bring us to a stop gap. It doesn't put any money in there towards projects, but it will prevent us to stop drawing from reserves and potentially going towards impact fees to balance our operating budget. And like I was saying, when I put my operating budget together, I had these figures and I said, whoa, well, I gotta look at the operating budget and see where I can save there, and that's where I made the savings. The water overall was a 0.11% increase with major increases in electricity, chemicals and all those things, so. That's where I stand on that, by looking at the numbers and going forward. I mean, we have the other section of Route 9 coming up here within 2 years, if they're on target. We're looking at a major capital project there.
Now, did I hear you correctly when you said you're taking money from the water and sewer enterprise funds to augment the ominous budget? That's, you said the operating budget.
Operating within the,
We're taking from, say, water reserves to help balance the water operating budget.
The money is staying within those two
Yes.
departments, not going
Yes.
for anything else?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
I
Both
did
water and
misunderstood the
sewer
way you
systems.
said it.
The other thing, my thought process was, as we go through this, is the direct and indirect costs. I'm kind of looking at everything in the department where I can save a few dollars within with the water and sewer rates, but I think maybe as we go, we can look at the direct and indirect costs and to drill down with that to look as far as where the money's going, if anything can be combined to save some water and sewer money. I'm not sure, but it's a thought at this point to go along with everything else I've been looking at.
My other concern is on water and sewer, the chargebacks. Are we charging excessively to augment, paying our, building up our free cash so we have money to pay our bills, in the fall? I don't know what the chargebacks are for all those departments, but I know Hadley Media was 23% and they worked it down. They're going to get $25,000 back. And I'm wondering if other departments are getting the same with chargebacks. I have no idea what they are, and I would like to know.
For administrative fees,
yeah. It's in the calculations in the budget book, so we
You
should.
try to pull them out, it's next to impossible.
Well, we should, I think when we have everything else in front of us, we should have that in front of us too.
I'd like
That
to know
analysis.
how much the chargebacks are for the school.
a lot of it-
10% is fine with DOR. Once you get up to 15%, they start questioning it. If you're at 23%, that's enough to recalculate your tax rate. So, I don't want to get in trouble with DOR either, but I think we have to have these figures. As we go into town meeting here, we have no idea how we're going to balance this budget yet.
David,
have
can
no
we spend
idea.
some
of
time
this-
reviewing that?
I'm
And
sorry?
Can we spend some time reviewing
Sure,
that in this
it's
context?
It's in the budget book.
Yeah.
Happy
Donald,
to
a
go
lot of this was back when the DPW was formed. Because the proper portion from wastewater wasn't charged to the director and the secretaries and they weren't there before. The board members were all free when they were running the sewer commission. Minimal operation costs. Water, same thing. Now that we got a DPW director, a third of that comes out of that operating budget. So all that stuff needs to be taken into consideration why these particular figures and these enterprise funds are dwindling away.
And we have collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah.
Responsibilities still.
No, but it all started with the formation of DPW.
That's
I don't
actually
think so.
not true.
Yeah, because there was a town hall allocation was a big part of
Yeah,
that
it was
as well.
minimum though. That's what I'm saying. It was a minimum, not.
It was incomprehensible, but when I first came on board, I
Yeah.
made it into a standardized process.
Yeah. So, well, again, I think this begs a much bigger analysis. So, in terms of time sensitivity, I know that you, Marlo, and I were in a meeting earlier this week, and there was concern about, I think, May 3rd, that select board meeting being a meeting where we needed to make some decisions. But
You
that's
should,
not for everything, right?
At a minimum, you should have your public hearing on the sewer and water rates
May 3rd.
May 3rd.
on the 3rd.
Okay. And will all of that information be available to us?
Yes.
Okay. Is everybody good with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think you're gonna need more room on the public side of it. If you're gonna have a hearing, we shouldn't have it in here. I think that this
I don't
place
know,
will
have
be
we had-
packed.
I don't know what the attendance has been in the past for public hearings. Have many people shown
No,
up?
there hasn't been.
Okay. Well, can you keep an eye on that, David? I mean, if you're getting phone calls from people saying, when's, you know, I heard there's a public hearing, and you get a sense of a lot of interest, we may wanna move it, right? Okay. Okay, all right, anything else on that for now, or we'll put that on hold until we have more data
Mhm.
and analysis done? Okay. All right, the awarding of the clarifier contract. So David, you're asking for us to, see, so the bids include base bid, alternate number 1, which is the second gearbox, and alternate number 2, which is the complete painting of the clarifiers.
Right, so we're not recommending the alternate number 2 because that would break the budget. You have $290,000 available for this budget, and the award to Weston and Sampson CMR Incorporated for the base bid and the alternate number 1 would come up to $250,950. So you can
Which ones did you choose?
Weston and Sampson.
Weston and Sampson.
Okay, any questions for Marlo or David on that?
We're passing over the painting, but in all reality, it should be done when it's all apart.
Well, we talked about that a year ago when we were going through this process, and it was recommended by Ty and Bond not to coat both tanks top to bottom, simply because of the shape that they're in now. When they remove the parts and pieces that are clarifier, they're gonna touch up, when they reattach new parts in a different place, they're gonna touch up the paint. They're also gonna touch up the paint on the floor. Ty and Bond, who put the project together, recommended that we don't need to spend money right now. They would much rather see that second gearbox happen than the paint. So I'm going by their recommendation.
I'm gonna make a motion to accept Weston and Sampson as the bidder for the
Do you
clarifier.
have,
Second.
Hang on, okay, motion made and seconded, discussion?
do you have the gearboxes that each one of these people recommended?
I don't have the information on me, but the emails and putting it together had to be, I forget the name, I apologize, John, or equivalent.
I know what it said, but have you looked at them?
Look at.
Whether they're equivalent or not?
Ty and Bond, actually, I talked to them on Mr. Chris Bone on the phone today, and he reached out to Weston and Sampson to verify that information, and he came back to me and said, yes. Because my concern was where the bids came in with a difference from the next bidder. So they reached out and also got references.
Well, like I said, all I'm looking at is the ones that are in there are 28 years old. I hope they are equivalent to what we have, that's all. And they've never been apart.
Yeah, let's hope we get another 28 of these.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I hope they're apples for apples.
Fair-
That was
fair.
part
I've
of the-
seen engineering mistakes before, is what I'm saying.
That was part of the process, and there was multiple emails going back and forth with myself, Ty and Bond, and the chief operator on that. And we were assured that they were equivalent.
Okay.
We're gonna come in about 40,000 under budget.
Mhm.
That's what it looks like. Okay, we had a motion made and seconded.
Our
Put it to a vote.
recommendation from Ty and Bond is to go with Sampson and
Mhm.
Weston and Sampson?
Yes, they assured me there should be no reason to hold back today.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay. All right, then we have the Route 9 widening lease agreement. Okay, so this is a lease agreement between the town and ET&L, which is set to expire on April 18th, with month-to-month extensions thereafter. So the lease allows for the use of the Russell School and the upper parking lot at the American Legion. And concern is making sure that the upper parking lot does get cleared out in time for the Memorial Day Parade, because everybody knows that that's pretty packed for that event. And we're being asked to provide a 30-day notice of termination. So there is a copy of the lease agreement. David, anything, or you and Marlo want to add to that?
Well, I spoke to Marlo earlier today, if I could be so bold, and
Of course.
Marlo said that, and if there's some of the equipment, if they need to move it down to the town garage, they're welcome to do that, and then there's just some aggregate that's left up there. Other than that, that's all they have, with the exception of some barriers that they have,
Yeah,
right?
Construction trailer's still there, but it's not packed full.
Yeah, and I'm sure if they need to continue using the Russell School, we can accommodate them, but we need to send notice that we're terminating the lease.
I verified with Mass DOT today that for the punch list they have left for the contractor, UT&L, they shouldn't need a full construction regime up there left. I mean, if anything, they might need a backhoe. And like I said, they can store it down the yard if they need to.
Motion.
The other point of concern was there was some damage done to that upper lot. They worked in there all summer.
And the lower lot.
They dug up the pavement pretty good up top. I did in discussion with the contractor to get that repaired as part of.
So you're actively pursuing,
Yeah, but it wouldn't hurt to add that into the letter, the formal letter, to get it into writing.
yeah, because I know a lot of the folks at the Legion are concerned about being left with damage.
Motion to send the letter?
Second.
Hang on.
Okay.
We're
John?
motioning.
Go ahead, discussion. Motion made and seconded, yeah.
The no turn on red signs.
Oh, can we
Does
take,
that need to
That's
go-
not in
That's
this.
another issue.
That's
That's
a
a
different
separate
No,
issue.
but does that need to go to ET&L or to the state?
That's the state.
Sorry.
is that the state?
That would be state, we just put back what was there, the state would have to make that call, yes.
Marlo, in your interpretation for that parking lot, are you looking at like stone and oiling it to bind it all together, or actually paving it, asking them?
Well, the upper part of the lot is what I'm talking about, the town-owned portion, excuse me, they really dug it up with a loader, got right into the material. It's hard to tell whether it was oil and stone and blacktop or a combination before or whatever. I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't in the best of shape, but it was blowing up pretty bad. It's just gravel right now, so as far as looking at that portion, I'd like to see them do something with it, whether it be oil and stone.
Well, I think at the same time, it has to be brought in for discussion, the Legion parking lot. Because they ran every piece of equipment over that and chewed it up too. There's potholes all over that filled with, a hot patch now, and those are all gonna come out if you don't deal with it.
Yeah, and I agree, they did a lot of hot patching when they came into town, as they moved into the lot, but I agree, there's potholes in the lower Legion lot too, and should be part of the discussion.
Thank you.
Good. Hopefully we can get them to,
Do it before Memorial Day.
yeah, exactly, do it before Memorial Day. Okay, so we have a motion made and seconded.
Mhm.
Ready to put it to a vote? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, FY18 budget. Okay, so David, what did you have in mind for us this evening on this?
Well, just to, in case you haven't seen your email, we did receive the cherry sheet based upon the House Ways and Means budget. The assessments in particular went up for charter school sending by about $40,000. You take all the ins and outs that comprise the local aid cherry sheet, and we're about $18,000 behind from where we were the day before. The Finance Committee is going to be meeting on the 20th to go over the budget. They've asked me to provide a revised budget based upon the enhanced asks of the departments as well as the adjustments that the Select Board have made. And if you can remember, we made a few $1,000 adjustment to legal, and you're not going to put $5,000 into stabilization. A couple other adjustments to the building maintenance budget. So we've prepared those numbers. I want to double check them and then get them out to the Finance Committee and to you all tomorrow. That's where we are at this point. I do recommend that we call Representative Syback. The House will have about 1 week to debate the budget before sending it on to the Senate. We should be asking about the pilot of payments for state-owned land in the town of Hadley, which went down from the House Ways and Means budget compared to the governor's budget. The charter school reimbursement did not increase as much as we needed to. And then there's all that casino money that they said that would be a miracle that's supposed to hit the books in 2018. I know there's only one slots parlor up in Plainville. It's not performing well, but still they could throw a few bucks our way. So if we could make those phone calls presently, that would be good.
Okay, and we also have a public information session
Yep.
scheduled for the 20, whatever that Wednesday is.
26, I think it is.
And so we need to have content for
Yes.
that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Donna?
we don't have a handle on the federal budget, what's gonna happen there. And according to Governor Baker, he has no idea what's gonna happen with health insurance. There's gonna be $50 billion possibly in cuts for non-defense agencies. You know, just a little tip of the iceberg. This just came out, the Beacon, and, you know, it's astonishing. $220 million for minority business development to be cut, $9 billion the Department of Education, and that includes any after-school programs, learning centers, 31%, $2.6 billion from environmental protection, $330 million from the Superfund, 5.6%, $2 billion from the Department of Energy, which is all the weatherization programs that we have now, $15 billion in health and human services, including all the community service and block grants, $670 million from state and local homeland security, you know, and it goes on. Housing and human development, $3.3 billion. $700 million eliminating the local program for safety efforts, including reductions in community-oriented policing. The labor workforce, 21%, $400 million, cutting all the training centers, youth and federal support for job training. You know, and it goes on, and basically it ends. But most importantly, they would harm the services that cities and towns provide to build strong communities and neighborhoods and improve the quality of life for the residents of Massachusetts. So if that happens, I don't know where our budget's gonna be.
Yeah,
You know.
I think we're gonna have bigger fish to fry if that happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same talk every year. It's, you know, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. So hopefully it will, just like last year, it'll work itself out in the end. And there will be cuts, I'm sure of that, but we gotta go with what we have available for us today.
Okay, so you're gonna make the adjustments that have been discussed so far,
Right.
recognizing it's still not a recommended budget, that, you know, further review from the Finance Committee, and we're gonna be taking another pass at it. I think the thought is to get some feedback at the public session as well, as we roll through the warrant articles and let everybody know what the plan is for
Mm-hmm.
annual town meeting.
Right.
Okay. All right, so we'll have this on the agenda again, I'm sure, on May 3rd.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And town meeting is May
4th.
4th.
May 4th. And I think the Finance Committee is thinking that you're going to have some, if not solid recommendations, a general direction to go in by the end of your meeting on the 20th. Right.
Okay.
At some point, are we gonna invite our financial advisor in to give us an overall look of this whole budget, what he thinks about it?
For the budget, well, what we did talk about was bringing David Eisenthal in, and also possibly Terry Williams and or Sandy Pooler, the former CFO, what was he called? Finance
The
director?
Finance Director.
Finance director from the town of Amherst, who's
Mhm.
actually one of the kind of the experts on the Arlington plan, to bring them in for a higher level discussion, so we have a better sense in terms of, you know, what are the options in terms of revenue strategies that could be put in front of us, and then also what are the impacts of some of the decisions around, you know, adding, not adding to stabilization, that type of thing, and which is where David Eisenthal, the financial advisor, comes in, 'cause he's got a pretty keen sense of the impacts on the bond rating and the like. I don't see that happening. I mean, it's not gonna happen before town meeting though, but we we talked about doing that certainly in like the month of May.
Right, I did reach out to Terry Williams, and he's intrigued, and he's gonna check with his superiors to see if he could be let loose
Mhm.
on the town of Hadley
Mhm. As he has been in the past.
in the past.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
I
Okay.
just like the idea of having somebody neutral come in and looking
Exactly.
at it and give us another opinion of what it looks like overall
Yep.
for the future, you know?
Oh, definitely. I mean, in terms of the multi-year planning,
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
what
for
I'm
sure.
looking for.
Yeah, me too. Okay, anything else on this front then? Okay, if not, next item on the agenda is boards and committees review. I actually requested this, so I'll explain. And again, going back, I'm kind of going over the notes of the past year and some of the things that we said that we wanted to talk about. And one of the things that we wanted to take a look at had to do with kind of the overall governance structure in Hadley, which includes all of the different committees and boards, of course. And then during the budget cycle, like we heard the planning board coming in and reminding us with great gusto about the future of the planning board and the brain trust that's going to drop off at some point and what the future might look like. And part of that discussion was also, you know, we've never really sat down and we kind of roll through the budget and we just say, oh yeah, Board of Assessors or Park and Rec or whatever, but we don't really look at them in context of, you know, how do they fit into the whole picture in terms of what's the compensation for the different boards, how often are they meeting, you know, what's the purview of that board. So I had asked David just to put it on the agenda tonight to start that discussion, but I think that the service delivery plan describes what each board is responsible for. But then I'm also imagining pulling together from the treasurer's office. They have a nice spreadsheet that shows, you know, again, how many people are on the board and what the board compensation arrangements are. And it seems like it's something that we should at least take a look at, because I have a feeling that in some cases we're going to be scratching our heads saying, huh, how'd that happen? Okay.
Mhm.
So again, that's part of the longer range planning. You know, is there anything that needs to be
Mhm.
adjusted, rectified, whatever?
So we'll be able to read through this at our leisure, but you're gonna get us another report that's gonna understand the compensation for each and every one of those, and we'll anticipate that in the future.
Yes, and probably in the very near future, because the treasurer's office did get that information. I just need to sort a spreadsheet that was provided, and we can get that out to everybody.
And this is gonna be after town meeting, I'm assuming she's
Yeah.
got plenty on her plate
Yeah,
right now.
I'm thinking, you know, again, in the month of May.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Do you presently have a format for the forum at all? I'm sure you're working on it, but how it's gonna go?
Actually, I was kind of waiting today to start working on that.
I
But
don't blame you.
yeah, David and I talked a little bit about that. But I mean, if you guys have thoughts on that, I mean, we were talking about doing some sort of a PowerPoint. I know last time there were some complaints about the visual, and I think our new Hadley Media is probably going to be very helpful in that regard. People had difficulty seeing some of the slides that were put up for the PowerPoint. Those are more logistical issues. But in terms of content, you know, thoughts that you guys have?
I think that should just pertain to what our warrant is for the up and coming election. I think that's what people need to be informed about.
Mhm.
And that we should promote what we feel we're working on and
How and why.
how-
This is
yeah.
what's going on, why it's happening.
Right.
What we anticipate
Same
for
thing
the
as we
future.
did the last time.
Yeah, but then
Only-
also where it fits in the context of the longer range plan. So
Correct.
you know, again, to Donald's point, these numbers aren't necessarily looking that great as you roll them out. And it's
Right.
important for people to know that when they're voting
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
Donald, did you have other thoughts too?
No,
Or-
I agree with Joyce, as long as we stick to the subject matter and don't deviate into other areas, because that could become very lengthy.
I couldn't agree with you more. Let's
Yep.
focus on the warrant and the warrant.
I agree with
articles.
that too.
Yeah.
If people want other forms of discussion for that, I don't want to discourage that thought process, but I don't think this is the place for it.
I
Right.
Let's talk about the warrant and
Right.
get forward.
Right.
This
Okay.
is more informational for them to know what we're talking talking about at town meeting.
And plan would be to get a draft of that out to all of the select board, so that if people have, comments you wanna, edits, whatever.
I think we got some feedback last year that if we anticipated what the questions would be on town meeting floor, and we were able to answer that at the forum, that it could quite possibly help town meeting move along, or at least it could bring up the discussions and the different sides of the discussions to be understood.
Yep. Okay. Okay, so speaking of annual town meeting, we have the review of the warrant.
So
David?
the capital planning committee, CPA, and finance committee, they've all completed their work. The warrant has been reviewed by council. You have the version that I sent to council. The only major change is that he took one of the articles and said, you don't need this, so I took the liberty and deleted it from the roster.
Which one's that, David?
This would be the fee for the consultant, and the reason why you said that we don't need it is that I have it listed as a bylaw, and he said that the law doesn't provide for that, but it does provide for us to handle that as a regulation. So we can do this as a select board regulation rather than a bylaw on town meetings. So I figured one less article.
Yeah.
And was stabilization money removed?
Right, that's part of the budget.
Oh, yeah, I know, I'm just asking that.
Yeah.
So,
So tonight, what I'm hoping is that the select board makes their recommendations for the each of the articles, that you assign the responsibility for presenting the motions, and that you vote to sign the warrant so I can post it tomorrow.
okay, so you want to start at the beginning?
So the first three articles are consent agenda articles. The first Article 1 is to accept grants without having to go back to town meeting every time we get a grant. The second article is for Chapter 90 money, so that we don't have to go back to town meeting to spend money on roads and bridges. And the third article is for the short-term borrowing in case we have a cash flow problem, which we have never done, but it's always safe to have this article in place.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion for the first three?
Motion accepted.
Second.
Support.
Okay.
They
Yeah,
are.
exactly.
These are all consent agenda ones.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
And
Article
does
4.
anybody want to speak to grants, Chapter 90, and temporary borrowing?
Usually the moderator speaks to those,
Yeah,
right?
the consent agenda, Brian does, yeah.
Okay. The next one is Article 4. It's the revolving funds. This is an annual article. This is for 8 revolving funds, the same as we did for last year, for cemetery burials, electrical inspections, tax title collections, recyclable payments, dog control, Russell School lease, sealer, weights of measures, and park and recreation revolving fund.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Article 5.
Does somebody want to
Oh,
speak to
sorry.
that one?
Who wants to speak to it?
You usually give that to me.
Okay. Showa.
All right, the Article 5 is housekeeping. It's where we're taking fund balances that we don't need and tidying up the books. So we're returning money back to capital stabilization, water reserves, sewer reserves, CPA. We're making an adjustment on the Lorana Lane project, and then we're amending our borrowing authorizations to take some of the borrowing, small surplus borrowing authorizations off the books so that we don't have to continually report to the SEC and Department of Revenue.
Is it returning to whence they came?
Yes, by law, they have to go back to the same pot they came out
Motion to
of.
support.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and do you speak to that, or just do one of us?
I can speak to it?
So again, I think it's more of housekeeping, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And if somebody was to ask for a specific why there was money left over.
then Linda or somebody would be there.
People ought to be able to speak to it more
Yeah.
a little bit.
Right.
Yep.
All right, Article 6 is the omnibus budget. We're not in a place to recommend, and the Finance Committee is not recommended at this time.
Okay.
Article 7 is the water treatment plant filtration membrane reserve, and this is the first of the putting more money back into that capital stabilization fund.
All
to-
due respect, does this not usually fall under housekeeping or under the consent agenda?
It's on the consent agenda.
Okay, great.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that'll be Brian again, right?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah. Okay, oh, take a vote on it though, right?
right.
Motion accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We went up on that too, didn't we?
Yes.
Yes, you
Yeah.
did.
Was
Went from
10,000.
Was 10,000, went up to 26.
And that's 10 installments, right?
Yes.
We figure
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
10 years?
Yeah.
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 Maybe more this time, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, it'd still be 10 installments, but
Yeah. But the life
we
expectancy.
possibly could get a better life expectancy than we had with the original
Yeah.
filters.
Yes, there's more of them in the new set that went in there, so. And the first set is kind of like your first rate change, not free, but a cut rate, that's kind of what happened with the first set. So the second set is the real McCoy, so to speak, that's why the increase is there.
Okay, Article 8, capital?
That's the capital article, only two projects. One was the town hall paving project, and the other one is the Hadley Media capital money. There's no impact upon taxes for either project.
Motion accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I will speak to it if I could be
Yeah.
so bold.
Yep.
You're bold.
You are bold.
Uh,
Jerry the bold.
Consultant, Article 9 consultant is gone. It's out of here.
What?
Nine's gone.
9 is
Oh,
gone.
it's gone.
gone.
Okay, all right.
Article 10, the Long Range Plan Implementation Committee, just again, housekeeping.
So Brian can do that, or?
I think somebody who's familiar with the history should speak to that one.
Planning board,
It's not the planning
or
board.
the long
No.
range planning committee.
Jerry
Not
was a
their-
member.
It's not their,
Does that make you the most familiar?
The bold.
Jerry the bold?
you want him to do it?
I will, but are you sure this is still a good idea since we have a brand-new long-range plan that's in front of us? Are we a touch premature if some of the recommendations out of our new plan?
The planning board had a lot to do with it. I think Mr. Dwyer was speaking to it in portions
Yeah.
in the past, so.
This is a committee that hasn't met for 2 years,
Yeah.
and the planning board by law takes care of the implementation of the
Yeah.
master
And it
plan.
wouldn't preclude us from
You could make another
forming
one.
another
Yeah.
group or something if we wanted to. So this is just laying down the original
Right.
committee.
I'll speak to it.
Yep.
All right, do we need to approve?
We did.
Oh, did we do?
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
No.
So moved.
Trickster. Okay, motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 11.
It's HCOG membership.
Oh, and this one, we're waiting for Donald to have more information on the 26th or 7th, right, Donald?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I also understand, David told me last week that it's much more difficult to withdraw than we thought. Can you explain that a little?
Yeah, so I just went over the charter for the HCOG, and this is a long-standing charter. It requires us to give them a year's notice, so so I've amended this article to read not effective July 1st, 2007, but July 1st, 2018.
Quit paying the bill, it'll take care of itself.
It's funny how that works.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna hold on this though until we
My
have more.
other question would be, because the finance committee has already recommended, now would you change your recommendations if you have new information prior to town meeting, possibly?
We weren't sure. We wanted to have something down.
Yeah.
But we could possibly change our.
Yeah, because they do amend them, and they've amended them in the past with new information, you know, years ago, I know, so.
Did you
Okay.
get any response from the school, how it's gonna affect them if we pull out?
No, we should talk to them too.
I mean, there's a lot of loose ends here before you go recommending something like this.
Yep. Okay, so we'll do a final push on that after, again, Donald
Alright.
attends the meeting and we'll get that to Finance Committee.
Is somebody going to speak to this one?
Donald, I think.
I'll do that, yeah.
Senior Tax Work-Off Program.
Motion to promote.
I'll
So
second.
moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm the liaison to the seniors, so I will speak
You
to
want to?
that, please.
Okay.
John, jump in here anywhere.
Geez, you're talking to everything.
Huh? I'm done.
All
I
right,
got,
then.
I got the softball. We're leaving the,
The next two are the solar pilot agreements.
so moved.
Second.
Okay. So Article 13 and 14 you're moving?
13 and 14.
Okay, motion made and seconded. And again, this is nothing out of the ordinary. This is, we've seen this before, right?
This will be the 6th and 7th time that we've done this.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
There's no chance of that being part of the consent agenda?
It can.
Yeah.
I think you probably could.
I don't know, there's,
I have a feeling people will ask questions.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think they should be separate.
Okay, does anybody dying to speak to this, or?
I'll talk to her.
Okay, so Joyce for the solar?
I'm so solar. Jerry can be bold.
Is it normal for Nexum to ask to speak on these articles, or no? They don't?
They're there in the audience, and
Yeah.
we've never had a question on this.
Yeah.
We've done
But
5
they're
of
available,
So
right?
then-
Yeah,
Okay.
we've done 5 of these already, and this is going to work out to about $40,000 of new revenue.
Okay, Article 15, the local option tax for recreational marijuana.
Joycey?
I ain't talking to that one.
So moved.
Well, isn't that sort of all on hold now because of the state?
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Second.
I would say it's helpful for us to have this in place.
Lined
You,
up,
you gotta
yeah.
have it in place.
Yeah.
The voters already voted for it, you know?
Yep.
All you wanna do is
It's-
smoke pot, David. I know you.
Me?
Yeah.
Motion
Okay,
second
we're
on the floor.
straying from the agenda.
Yeah, but the voters voted for medical marijuana.
Yeah.
They haven't had a chance to vote for recreational
Right.
marijuana yet,
That's
but
right.
they're gonna accept it.
That's right.
We're going to
Yeah.
send this to the joint committee.
Mhm.
I work
Okay.
in the joint.
Is there a
Motion
motion
seconded.
made?
Yeah,
Is there a
I
second?
seconded.
Oh, you did second it,
Yes.
okay. All in favor?
Aye. Opposed?
All opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay.
Are there gonna be samples?
Yeah.
So for
Brownies
the,
for you.
clarity of the vote, there is 410,
Let
right?
it be known that Joyce does
John,
not
do you
want to
wanna-
raise taxes for the town of
Do you want to
Hadley.
talk to this one?
Sure.
Okay, so you can put John down for the,
I
Okay.
don't- It's the principle of it, Jerry, not the, not that.
All right, so
Article
the next
16?
articles are the Conservation Committee, the CPA
CPA.
Committee, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You have in the past chosen not to make recommendations one way or the other on any of them.
but we can speak to them individually if we so choose.
Right, is this something that you want to
But the committee would speak to it, wouldn't they?
Yeah, the
Right,
CPA
so the
does.
first one,
Cisco?
first one, number 16, is on the consent agenda. It's the standard article that we do every year.
Mhm.
The next one is money for HCOG for $10,000.
Hmm.
Do you want to stay silent? Do you want to make a recommendation? What's the
I would
pleasure
like
of
to
the
hold
board?
that pending Donald's recommendation.
All right.
Does that make sense, Donald?
Yeah, my, belief in that is they're going after all the people that voted for CPA money. But
today-
there's a lot of communities that belong,
do.
like South Hadley, that don't have any CPA funds, and they're not gonna pay anything.
On the 6 o'clock news tonight, the Hampshire County Courthouse was approved for a significant amount of money for a
Yes.
restoration process to begin with, so.
But Springfield was.
And the other
Springfield was
thing,
not.
Yeah, I don't like
the
the CPA
courthouse,
either.
the court of Massachusetts pays the cost $125,000 a year in rent, plus they pay the electricity, they pay the heat, and custodial. And where that money goes, nobody has any idea.
Well,
They haven't saved any of it for repairs to the building.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, if we don't vote, I was planning on getting up and speaking against this. I don't think the CPA funds should be leaving the town of Hadley for this purpose. I mean, this is somebody else's issue that's been created, and
Right.
to Donald's point, I don't think that there's a parity here with all of the participants. It doesn't make any sense to me to send this
I
money.
agree with you on that.
No, but we have.
What?
We have, saved a little bit of money through Hampshire County over the years, so, I mean, we are involved. And I got another question on the next article coming up too.
I'm gonna
With,
make a recommendation against on this one.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Yeah,
Okay, motion made and seconded against this article. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
No,
Okay, so 4-1? 4-1-0?
And just for the clarity of the record, a yes vote means no.
yes,
Correct.
Correct.
no, yes, no.
All right.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, so the next one is $500 for Smith Charities to conduct a study of the preservation of their building in Northampton.
Does Smith Cherries have any effect on,
You wanna make a
Hampshire
motion
County.
first? You wanna motion it first?
No, but
Yeah, I think he was asking.
For discussion.
alright. Alright, I'll make a motion to accept it.
Second?
Okay, all right, for discussion, what's your question?
Does Smith Charities have any links to Hampshire County COG through, Hampshire County?
no,
No.
None whatsoever.
no.
Smith, Volk
Yeah,
and Smith Charities, not through the COG.
alright, no connection at all with that.
No.
No, there's 7 communities that have
Yes,
access to those funds
yes.
only
Smith
in
Charities.
Hampshire County.
Hadley, Hatfield.
Through the
yeah.
will.
Yeah,
Correct.
But why wouldn't the will have provided for the upkeep of the building? I mean,
Money's
the-
gone.
yeah.
Money's going away.
Yeah.
They live and breathe on interest, and because the economy has been so poor, as my financial advisor tells me, that the money is disappearing, that then they don't have any money available. So they're actually gonna put together, and then they're gonna ask for money through a state grant. And I know Sheila Konechny can speak to this, but I believe that they need to do this process in order to apply for a state grant to see about getting some monies from the state. And they're asking for the support of the individual towns through the CPA to help them get the process started.
But again, it's our CPA money that's leaving the town for a building located elsewhere. I mean, I know,
A lot of kids went through that school.
yeah.
And they were Hadley people.
Yeah, no, I know, and I remember Sheila saying that was,
Mhm.
X number of thousand, so,
Yeah,
okay.
all right.
The only problem I have with it, it opens up the door. We start donating to one charity, we could have an influx of many charities coming to the town. Could you donate us 500? You did to Smith Charities, and I get a little leery when that happens.
It's on a case-by-case basis.
I hear what you're saying, Donald, but I think Smith Charities I think the town of Hadley's benefited significantly from the Smith Charities, and I think the one-time $500, and I think we were very poignant in our discussion that this is where it ends, that we will not be entertaining any further discussions regarding adding any monies for the upkeep of that building. This is for a review of the building so that they can go forward in the grant process.
Okay.
Motion is second on the floor, Chair.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What was that?
Against?
I don't. Yeah, I'm gonna say no and then wait and see what Sheila says on the floor.
4-1.
Clarity of the record, it's a 4-1 vote.
Yep.
Okay. West APR CPA funds for $25,000.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Heron CPA money for $4,500.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against?
4-1-0.
Okay, do you wanna tell us why, or?
You're opening up a can of worms. we've already gone through the process. The state decided that they weren't gonna add any more money for that CPA or for that APR, and that's now coming out of the town of Hadley. This already went through once. I don't understand why we would approve an enhanced amount of money for a particular property versus other ones.
This doesn't say anything about it having been,
This was approved before, that this is coming back for additional money.
They're coming back for more money,
Why?
why?
because it was an enhanced property and they feel that it's worth more than the original deal was signed for, and because the state APR doesn't have any more money available to give them for this particular piece of property, the responsibility is falling back on the town.
I'd like to revote that then. Reconsideration, please.
Yeah, okay.
Does the committee understand that, if they
Yeah, I'm
voted
just-
7-0?
This is CPA.
So that
and
scenario is the
finance.
first time I've
This is
heard
the
it,
fourth
Jerry,
time I
and,
spoke to it.
yeah, and I agree with you now too.
Yeah.
So the Heron,
I
the,
have the application if you wanna take a quick look at it.
Yeah,
No,
sure.
not if they're going after it again.
Yeah.
so the Heron, the Heron
Thanks,
property
Amy.
came to the town about 2 years ago. For one reason or another, the deal didn't get done for 2 years. The property was reappraised and it came back at $9,000 more. State had already committed what they could commit, so the difference is being made up by the town of Hadley.
So I guess it leads me to a question, if we don't commit our 4,500, does it
I don't
hold
think-
up the deal?
I think it does.
And we won't get the land put into APR?
I think that's the danger that we run here.
And then you can develop that 17 acres.
Yeah. and-
Does anybody else want to see this?
Let's see. Okay.
I'd like to have more discussion about it
Mm.
before I take a vote, if that's a,
Yeah, let's hold on this one.
you guys okay holding on it and not, does anybody want to withdraw the,
I'll make a motion to withdraw the vote for now until further discussion.
Second.
okay?
Mhm.
All right, David, so we'll keep
Let's-
that one on there and we'll get,
Okay.
okay.
So the next two are the Weston Heron APRs again, only we're being asked to match the CPA funds with TDR funds.
Right,
So,
so,
21 so moved.
Second.
okay, all in favor of Article 21?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then same thing, we'll hold on the related TDR for the Heron property until we,
okay, does
Yeah.
anybody want to speak to these two TDR properties?
Anybody dying to talk to him?
I'll do the West property.
Let the
Is that
CPA.
Shouldn't the CPA do that?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's true, yeah, this
Those
is
are
gonna be
CPA.
CPA
Not
anyway.
TDR, right?
TDR, they're not,
Oh,
CPA, yes, TDR.
just the TDR.
Okay, I'll do the
TDR is planning, or, I don't care.
Is it the planning board?
I don't think so, I think we did last time, because I'm pretty sure I
Alright.
did it for whatever the other parcel was.
Okay, I'll do West.
Okay, and then let's hold on the other one until,
Mhm.
so nobody's going to speak to it?
Choices.
Joyce is going
To
to do
West.
both.
no, she's gonna
No.
speak to Article 21.
Right, what about
We're
the
gonna
Heron?
hold
We're
on
holding
22.
off on 22 until we know what direction we're going in, and then we'll decide who'll speak to it.
Okay. We typically have someone speak to the article, just to introduce it.
Fine, I'll do it.
All right.
You do 22.
Just have to figure out whether there's a lilt in my voice.
All right.
All right, so the next ones, I think, are planning board articles and a petitioned article.
Yeah.
You don't
We don't do
typically
those.
take a stand on planning board. Do you want to take a stand on the petitioned article?
No.
Does anybody want to take a stand on that? Or just let them speak to it on the floor?
Let them speak to it on the floor.
Okay. Okay, I think is that it for the warrant, David?
The only thing is to authorize signing and posting the warrant.
David, I have a question about the
Sure.
warrant. Wasn't there 2 articles that we were going to wait and listen to I didn't remember which 2 articles, but I thought there was 1 or 2 that we didn't make a recommendation on.
The only one I think you didn't make a recommendation on was the omnibus budget.
How about HPEB, is that what she's speaking to regarding to
To-
funding,
capital.
to coming up with the capital, on the capital, the actual itemization of the spending for the capital spending for the
Right.
HPEB?
So we just got that from John Allen today, and I sent that on to everybody.
Did you happen to get a copy of that, and is that the one you're speaking of, on Article number 8 on the capital?
I have the Finance Committee recommending the capital article.
Yeah, I thought we did the capital. I was, for some reason, I thought we had, held off on the HCOG because we wanted to hear, I thought we did.
Yeah, you took a vote of 2-1-1 on the HCOG.
Against, right?
Okay. I thought there was one against.
And then there was another one where you split a vote.
I know that the CPA was split.
Yeah.
And CPA on the 10,000 for HCOG was 2-1-1,
Okay.
but different too.
Mixing it up, huh? Nice.
Okay, make a motion to sign the warrant.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Congratulations, you have a
We
warrant.
have a warrant. Very good.
Earliest one you've ever produced.
David, do you want to hit, we skipped over the town administrator report. Do you want to hit the highlights, you know, like, gee, the Bay Road Bridge
Again,
again? Yeah, but anything else?
anything new?
Yeah, just new stuff.
Some highlights, be happy to. We had a meeting with Berkshire Gas this morning to talk about the moratorium and its impact upon the economic development. We've submitted testimony at the DPU hearing in Boston about the impact of the moratorium and how that affects our ability to attract and sustain businesses here. That conversation was lengthy, but I think ultimately there were some good things that came out of it. Obviously, we've explored short-term solutions, and we talked about long-term solutions. We're going to be having further conversations about what can be done to help out the business community. Bay Road Bridge update, the DEP.
So what came out of that? Is there nothing going on, and there's no end in sight with that?
Well, the long-term solution is many years away.
Okay.
So building a new pipeline is simply not going to happen in the next couple of years. There are some possibilities of aggregating savings of energy. So if you have a developer who's got multiple properties and is able to save BTUs in one property, can they be reallocated to another part of that property or a different property altogether? So we were talking about that as a possible approach. We put our heads together and came up with some ideas about bridge loans in order to help people convert from propane to develop with propane, and then in the future they could switch over to gas.
How about, why are we being targeted as one of the communities that has a moratorium whilst others do not have a moratorium? Is there an answer to that?
Everybody.
Hatfield has
That's-
one, everybody has one.
I don't know of any community
Yeah.
that doesn't have a moratorium in
Yeah.
Western Massachusetts at this
Everybody
point.
at Berkshire Gas, this whole division has a moratorium.
Mm-hmm. My friend has gas in her house in Hatfield. She put in an in-ground pool and had put lines out to it, and she could not hook up to it. She had to turn around and put
Yeah.
upright propane tanks out there. Not allowed to hook in.
So, I mean, it was a conversation. They came to the table. It was underwhelming, but keeping the lines of communication open, trying to figure something out.
On the point of reallocation of BTUs, is that more or less for like the mall?
No, I
Where
mean,
places were closed and they want to get it reallocated again?
yep, and so the folks from the mall were there, and they have been very actively working with Berkshire Gas, and actually, they wanted to make it clear that the individual responsible as the point person has actually been outstanding to work with in terms of trying to think outside the box. However, you know, I mean, again, they've kind of exhausted all of their reallocation possibility. But what was clear was that they're only willing for a single owner to be able to allocate. So like you, Joyce, and I couldn't get together as 3 separate property owners and figure out, okay, Donald, if you install solar, and Joyce, you do this, and that frees it up, and then now I get to upgrade my furnace. That they're not willing to do that kind of thing. It has to be a single owner. So the Barry Roberts of the world, who have multiple properties, or the mall that obviously has a large expanse.
Yeah, so there's some opportunities for Amherst, I think, in terms of some tax break incentives. We don't have the same profile here in the town of Hadley in order to provide tax incentives to attract businesses to offset the higher costs of, say, propane or some other form of energy. But we can look into those kinds of opportunities.
You know, I really like the mall though, because they're looking at converting more to an entertainment type center,
Yep.
and without being able to put in additional restaurants in there, it really hammers it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, actually, I mean, it was interesting listening. The folks in downtown Amherst, in a way, have a worse scenario because there is no alternative for them. So they're physically structured in such a way that they cannot install a propane tank. So there is no like plan B to go to. But yeah, I mean, certainly the mall's the obvious concern for us, let alone the new restaurants that have wanted to go in along Route 9.
You
So.
know, the geothermal, I don't know whatever happened to that, but I know there's a cost in that for heating and cooling.
Mhm.
But then you gotta change the whole design of your building at that point.
Yeah,
You
there
can't
wasn't
cook
any
with it
discussion
either.
about it today.
Yeah.
I know that the Sunderland Library pays more to run the fans than it would pay to heat the building.
Oh, yeah.
It's an educational process. Doesn't always work.
Anything else, David?
So a lot of the things that we talked about on your agenda are also things that I've included in my update report.
Okay.
So this is right here. There are some community events coming up that are worth talking about. There's Keep Hadley Clean program on April 22nd from 9 a.m. to noon. We have the town meeting public forum on April 26th at 7 p.m. over at Hopkins Academy. The Mothers Club Recycling Day is over at the elementary school on April 29th from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Senior Center Pocketbook and Scarf Sale to raise money for the Senior Center, April 29th, same day, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So you could do your recycling and pick up a pocketbook.
And make room for the pocketbooks and the scarves.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then annual town meeting coming up on May 4th, 7 p.m. at Hopkins Academy.
Okay.
Throw a monkey wrench in, but could you explain a little bit about what the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and why are they being delayed so long?
All right, so the Army Corps of Engineers has jurisdiction over navigable waters on the Connecticut River, and this part of the Connecticut River is considered to be navigable, and the tributary of Fort River would fall under their jurisdiction. They have to provide an environmental permit for any kind of work over or above or on the banks of the Fort River. They have not released their environmental permit yet. DEP has released theirs. They've notified our Conservation Commission, so we've seen some progress in the last week. I'm still trying to set up a meeting with the Mass Department of Revenue, Department of Transportation, in order to see what we can do about moving this project forward. I do know that there's high water right now, so even if they had their permits in hand, there would be no activity on the bridge at this time until the water recedes.
Not that high because
Crest Thursday night, it's heading
Yeah.
down on Friday.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going down.
it's going down because the
you know, the
it's all
U.S.
dry.
Army Corps don't want to take any responsibilities for any of the dams or dikes or anything, and yet they still have their fingers in all of these permitting issues.
Mm-hmm.
We begged them to help us with it, and they designed
Yep.
the dike. And then when we needed help, when we had the problem,
It
they
had
were
nothing
nowhere
to
to be
do with-
found.
Nothing to do with it.
Mhm.
Okay, anything else for David on his report?
No, I think we're all set. Well,
Okay.
at least I am.
Other announcements?
I just wanted to say I'm glad to see the asparagus fields getting burnt, the corn being planted, and potatoes are starting to be planted tomorrow.
Yeah.
So says Mike Swazi, so Spring is coming.
And Dan Chunglo was the first one in with his corn this year.
Anything else?
Proud mother.
Yeah, proud
Yep.
mom. I have 2 condolences tonight to the family of Scott Petralla, much too young to have passed away, and we send our condolences to his family. And then to also our condolences to Mitch Cook, who's a sergeant on our police force and lives in town. He had his dad, Mitchell Cook, just passed away this week also. So condolences to Mitch and his family.
Okay, if there's nothing else, a motion to adjourn?
Next
Motion-
meeting's when?
We have a public meeting to discuss the warrant articles, and that will be held
26th.
2 weeks from today, which is April 26th.
Mhm.
And that is at Hopkins Academy
Yes,
at
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Okay.
Okay, to Donald's point, should there be any formatting on that so people are able to discuss that? I mean, are we gonna get a copy or an understanding of what the format's gonna be and how we're gonna go forward with that?
Yeah, David's going to get a draft out to the full board in
Draft
advance.
it, yeah, draft it and so we can get it released early enough.
Yep. Okay,
Could I ask a question?
sure.
I apologize if I just missed it, but was there a poll hearing tonight for Verizon for
No.
3 polls?
There was a draft agenda with a poll hearing that was supposed to happen tonight. The notice didn't get out in time to meet the legal requirements, so that's been rescheduled.
Do you know when it's been rescheduled to?
May 10th, I think it is.
Eversource requested these polls.
This is, we just received the notice.
I'm waiting
Who's he
on
with?
Eversource to do the upgrades for Hampshire College. And
Are you Eversource?
No, Hampshire
No.
College.
You're
Hampshire
Hampshire
College?
College.
we need the system upgraded and we're not on the agenda in May now.
May.
When do you need it to happen?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Can we get it scheduled for May 3rd, or is that too soon?
We can do it for May 3rd.
Can we do it on the 20, was that that's when our meeting is for the
You can,
Yeah.
next
you
meeting?
can do it on the 26th.
Oh, that's right, we actually did that last time, didn't we?
Mhm.
Didn't we
Yeah.
open it and have the hearing?
We did.
Yeah. Want to
Okay.
try that?
Yeah,
I would be willing to, I mean,
Sure.
anything we can do.
Okay.
to
help you out, yeah.
What's the date?
It's 2 weeks from tonight,
Okay.
so, and that would be at 7 o'clock
Right.
At Hopkins.
at
At
Hopkins
Hopkins.
Academy.
Do you have a card that you can leave with me?
Mhm.
Do you have a card that you can leave with me?
Yes,
All right, that would be great.
Mhm.
appreciate it. very
Sure.
much.
Are you facilities over there? Are you Larry's,
I'm the guy Larry hired. so
Okay.
David, do you have the warrants to sign?
Yes.
not very well, I might add, I played with him. Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Showed up at work, so he's doing something right.
Yeah. Okay, motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, good night, everybody.